Hello, my name is David Groenjes, and I'm a metal sculpture artist from De Pere, Wisconsin, and I work primarily with recycled and reclaimed metal pieces. And today we're going to be working on making a sculpture of a raven. So similar to this one right here in the foreground, of course, working with scrap metal, every single sculpture is going to be different. So here's a look at some of the pre-selected pieces I have to make a raven sculpture similar to this. We have an old hay rake, part of a pitchfork, bolts, various sizes of smaller sprockets, just some cutting blades off some old tools. We have some small ball bearings, standard nails, and masonry nails. We have some circular shaped pieces. These are all snap rings and springs out of an automatic transmission, part of an old air cleaner box. We have a sprocket from a dirt bike. And these are all various pieces of sheet steel ranging from 16 gauge to 1/8 inch thick. Circular saw blades, some old pieces of hand tools, a piece of a drawer pull off of like a kitchen cupboard, sickle mower guard from an old vintage farm implement. So these are just some of the pieces we're going to use. So for starters on this project, I just get some reference photos like I do for all my wildlife sculpture. And I'll grab some photos of what I'm going to sculpt. And from there, I'll scale it. So I want this raven to be about 2 feet long. And so we're going to start off by getting some of the pieces for the legs and the toes cut, and I'm just going to get those cut, put them off to the side, but that's what I'm going to be working on first. So these toes are going to need some claws on the end, just like this. So we'll go ahead and take some nails and cut those tips off, bend them over, and weld those on the tips of the toes.
Warning: read and follow all labels and the owner's manual.
Here I'm getting the claws welded to the end of the toes. So I'm going to work on the beak / head, and first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this point and I'm just going to kind of make a mark on it where I want to make the new point of the beak. Here I'm using a 4.5 inch angle grinder with a cutting wheel, and I'm just shaping the end of this point so it doesn't come to such a sharp point. So we got it roughed out, and we've got the shape with the little hook. I'll do some fine tuning with some smaller air tools, but that's kind of the look I was going for. All right, so we're gonna get our eyeballs attached to the head, and then we'll build the head around that once we know where the eyes go. So I've taken the measurement I need from the beak back to where the center line of the eye is based on those reference photos. So I'm gonna get the eyes tacked on here, and then we'll make sure it's good before we really weld them on good. So we've got our eyes on, and they're pretty much centered. So the next thing I'm going to do to really give it some character is we're going to work on some eyelids. So we're going to want to frame the eye just like a person or any animal has an eyelid, instead of just a circle. So I'm going to take a washer, cut that in half, and make the bottom eyelid. And then I'll take a piece of this round stock here, and I'll just make a little piece around the top of each eye, and that'll give the eyelids some character like we have here. So we're going to position these legs where we want them to be. I'm just going to tack them to the table here for us to get started, and then we'll build the rest of it around them. For me, a lot of the fun in wildlife sculpture is all the different ways you can depict that animal. And so in this bird, we're gonna have him kind of like high, looking up, looking around, checking things out. Get the head welded on and see if we like the position. I think we'll give him a little head turn, like he's trying to figure something out. They're curious birds, you know, very intelligent. That looks good. So we're gonna go ahead and shear a couple pieces of this sheet metal that I have and start working on some feathers. The next thing I do is going to be to add the tail feathers, or at least the beginning of them, and we start building the bird up from the tail feathers. There we go, 2 tail feathers. Here we have a couple other pieces we're going to use in the tail. We've just got a piece of just flat stock scrap piece off of some type of equipment, got part of an Allen, and a tooth from that hay rake, and we're gonna wrap these up into the tail too. So now it's a little bit of a balancing act. I've taken the bird, broke it free from the tack welds on the table, have it supported by this magnet, and those toes we made earlier, I'm going to start getting those attached so that the bird can be moved around to work on it from here on out. The next thing we're going to work on here is getting the bottom line of the wing framed out so we can build the wings up from there. And we're going to start off with this piece that's got some really cool texture to kind of simulate that bottom edge of the wings. And then I'm going to combine that with one of these tines from that hay rake we were referencing earlier. And we're gonna kind of get that in there like that and get that wing, shape of that wing started out and see how that comes together. So here we have the wings, or the beginning of the wings attached, and you can see that shape that we achieved from those curved pieces. There's some cool texture in there, so that'll give me the basis to build the rest of the body up, with that being the outline of the bottom edge of the wings. Wing pieces cut and get the edges cleaned up. All these pieces that go through the shear, or if you cut them with a cutoff wheel, you're gonna want to clean up the edges so they're smooth. You don't want anyone cutting their fingers on them. And we're gonna get these placed right in here where we want them. Shearing a few more pieces for the wings. There, do you see it? It's a feather, big feather. Got some 16 gauge here. We're gonna go ahead and shear a couple more pieces. I got a couple pieces of saw blades cut up here that I'm gonna add for some texture now. Of course, you wanna dull those teeth a little bit so they're not extremely sharp. Layer these in here among the feathers. So I got a couple pieces of these sprockets cut up. Gonna get these rough edges cleaned up, but these are gonna get laid. Probably gonna lay these right in here and just get, some real nice aggressive texture on the edge of that wing. With the sprockets in place, I'm gonna lay some additional layers of wing material in, made up out of sheared pieces of sheet metal and a pair of old garden shears. I'm gonna start working up on the neck now, and I have an assortment of different sprockets. So ravens have kind of a rough, ragged look underneath on the bottom of their neck here. So I'm gonna have an assortment of sprockets to kind of use in here to simulate that look, get them placed just right. and kind of give it that rough feather look I'm going for. Work on some more texture on the wings. And I've got a couple pieces from an old pliers, actually a sheet metal shear. And we're gonna get these placed in here to start forming the front of the beak, just about like that. Here's a close-up of the head, showing some little pieces around the eyes. And then we'll be taking this piece, happens to be out of a sewing machine, and putting that right on the top of the head there. All right, so things are really coming together. I don't have a magnet supporting the back end anymore, however, it's still a little tippy, but all the metal now is gonna be on the front. I actually had to add a big piece of metal in here for some ballast, just to give it some more weight on the front. And I did that now while I could get it in there and then height it. The next piece will be another heavy piece. It's another sycamore guard. And that's gonna go up in here. That's gonna form the top of the back of the back, I guess you can call it. I like it. A couple other pieces. We just filled in this little bit around the eye on the back side of the face here. And then a couple more layers going in the top of the wings here. Another saw blade, another sycamore blade. And then I have these handles off of a tin snip, which I used part of up in the beak here earlier. And we're gonna get these cut and fit up right up into the front of the leg here on both sides. So we're gonna flip over to the bottom side here so I can get a better look at where I'm gonna put these pieces on the leg. Perfect. So here we've cut some more pieces out of one of our circular saw blades, an old, very rusted one. And we have a couple pieces here. And these are gonna get placed right back in here on either side. So that's what we're gonna do here next. I've been using auto set pretty much the whole time here. Right now, we're running it for a 16 gauge. I'll go back and forth between the auto set feature of like 18 gauge to maybe 14 gauge for everything I've done on here, just based on how it's welding, because I'm welding a lot of dissimilar dimension metals to each other. So there's no science, it's just what feels right. So the Raven's coming along pretty nicely here. And I would say we're on the home stretch. Gonna start filling in the bottom of, we'll call it the belly here. And I've got a piece of steel that I sheared in the shear over here, like we did the other pieces, got a little curve to it. And this is what I'm gonna start the form of the belly right here. Here I have some random cut pieces of sheet metal left over from the wings and tail, and we're just finishing the puzzle, figuring out where they fit the best. So at this point, there's really no rhyme or reason to where the pieces go. I'm just taking pieces, I might modify them slightly, and finding spots that look good based on those photographs that I have. So I'm gonna continue to work on up down the back of the neck, around the sides of the head, and then continue to fill in on the bottom of the neck here and the belly until we achieve what looks like a full-bodied Raven. So now I've got these pieces, actually these are part of an ABS sensor off I think a medium duty truck. And we're gonna take these, I'm gonna nest these right in here into the front part of the wing just to kind of establish like that curve of the wing, if you want to call it. It's not the shoulder, but kind of what looks like the shoulder on the bird. The top of the head needs a little bit more of a rise to it. You're gonna put that little piece, actually a spoon, right on top there. I'm hoping it gives me the look I'm going for. I think we're good. I've got a piece of bicycle chain that I actually tack welded to this steel to kind of hold it in shape so I could get it placed where I want. And this is actually going to get placed right up in here on the operating table. We have a piece that's gonna be placed right up in there. Another tiny piece is gonna go right in here. A couple pieces that are gonna get installed kind of in, I guess you'd call it the cheek area on the bird. And most of these are just cutoffs. All these are just cutoffs from when we're cutting other pieces. And then when we come around to the bottom here, got some random interesting pieces with a little texture. This one here, this is going right up in here somewhere. Well, you may have noticed a lot of my welds get hidden. For the ones that aren't hidden, I try to leave them as small and unobtrusive as possible. I like the look of the weld, but I don't want them to stand out too much. We're getting really close to being done here, and one of my final steps is cleaning everything up with a wire wheel, and we're gonna get rid of just a little bit of the soot around the welds, clean up any little pieces of slag that maybe have fallen on, and we're also gonna just look for any exceptionally rough edges, something that you could snag your hand on. It is scrap metal art, it's not a toy, but we wanna also make sure that there's nothing obvious that myself or anyone else could possibly scrape or cut their hand on. So I'm using just a fine stainless wire wheel, and my goal is not to change the color of the metal, to grind the metal, it's simply to smooth it out. I'm also careful on areas that are rusted that I don't remove too much of the rust, because I'm actually looking to keep most of that patina, so I don't want to clean it down to bare metal. Whatever you want to do, that's all up to you, but that's kind of my style, is keeping it rough, a little ragged. And for a Raven, I think that looks just about right. When you're all done and you're proud of your work, and you should be, then go ahead and sign it. There we go. We're gonna go ahead and call that complete. It's been fun. Thanks for hanging out.